Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third and final bite-sized research data webinar that we have here in the university. My name is Sean Lacey. I'm the Research Integrity and Compliance Officer, and we've been very fortunate to have had two excellent bite-sized research data webinars to date, led by Dr. Patrick Egan, our Research Data Management Librarian. These webinars have been about how to complete a research data management plan and how to plan for research data retention. And today's webinar is on how to handle copyright and Creative Commons licensing. And today, Patrick is actually joined by our digital scholarship librarian, Sinead Hanrahan, and the two of them are going to take us through this topic. Over to you, Patrick and Sinead. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming along today. And I'll just start the slideshow. Yep, as I was saying, this is Patrick Egan, Research Data Management Librarian, and also Sinead Hanrahan here as well, here in Research Data Services. My email is here, patrick.egan@mtu.ie, if you want to get in touch with us at all about anything to do with what we're giving here today. So in the previous webinar, as said by Sean there, we were looking at the plan for data retention, and then before that, then we also had how to complete a data management plan. All of these webinars are all building upon the work that was done previously in February from Teresa Hearn, and there's a whole collection of them there that you can follow, particularly in relation to working on data management plans. So looking at on the left hand side, you can see a link here, dmp.online.dcc.ac.uk, and that's a UK website that allows you to develop a data management plan using your credentials that are from MTU. A data management plan is a living document, so I would encourage you to go in, sign up under your MTU credentials and create a test one that you can keep private. You don't have to make it public, and then you can test out what it's like to create a data management plan. There's guidelines all along the way for you to build that plan as you go. So this webinar today, bigger, broader area than the other ones usually, because there's so much to do with legal issues. But it follows on from data retention and is very closely related to that as well. How do you manage your data responsibly, and what are the ways to do it? We'll find out what copyright is and what is it in a digital environment as well, by broadly defining data in the context of property, IP, and copyright. And we'll also focus then on Creative Commons licensing, which researchers do at MTU. A reminder again of the MTU library website, where there's a section on it that's research data management. All the way through that, I've been following these bite-sized webinars with info shares on all of these different sections that we have from the research data management section. You'll see within, if you click into the research data management area, you'll see there's a copyright licensing area here on the bottom left, second from the bottom. And in the copyright licensing area, there's a video you can follow to find out more about Creative Commons licenses. One of the big ones I would tout at the moment would be the Foundations of Open Sciences course in Canvas, which Sinead will be talking about later on, which gives a really good building your understanding of this area from scratch. So I suppose to get it down to scratch again here, look at what is data, or the plural datum. They can be defined as facts or information. So singular facts or a singular piece of information, especially when examined and used to find out things or to make decisions, or a thing that is known to or proved to be true. So it's recognized that data itself is not copyrightable within the copyright domain, as data is considered a fact, but expressions of data can be. So the big thing to remember here is data on its own is just a fact, but it's not copyrightable, but expressions of it can be. Okay, so a good example of it would be listings. If you see listings in a book, listings are not actually copyrightable, but it's the way that they're expressed that can be. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'll just hand over to Sinead here to take on to look at intellectual property and build upon what I was just saying about what data is. What is it in the intellectual property area?
Thanks very much, Patrick, and thanks for Sean for the introduction. So a lot of people, when we talk about copyright and stuff, the term "it's my intellectual property" comes up, but I don't think there's a lot of understanding of what intellectual property is. So the intellectual property is the product of a person's mental effort, so that's your creativity, intellect, and innovation. However, that doesn't mean that your work, that intellectual property, is immediately protected by copyright. There's a number of elements in IP that aren't protected by copyright, and data is one of them. And it's important to know the difference. There are other elements, there's trademarks and there are design, but they're not really related to what we're talking about today, but it's important to know that they are also protected by legislation. Oh, sorry, Patrick, you can go. I was trying to move the screen there myself. So to be very clear, what isn't protected? So facts, and when we say facts, we mean individual data points. So you can't copyright your name. That's a fact. Your name is your name. You also can't copyright readings that you have generated, like through an Excel sheet of readings that you've generated from your work and research. They're seen as facts. You can't copyright principles. So if there was, anytime there's a set of principles from an organization or a discipline, they cannot be copyrighted. The principles themselves can't be, but look, I'll get to that. The mathematical concepts, methods, and also unexpressed ideas. So unless you have written your idea down, or you have recorded it in a meeting like this, or drawn it or whatever, that idea cannot be copyrighted because it hasn't found expression yet. Sorry, Patrick, the next one. So the whole thing with what is protected by copyright and what isn't really comes down to what is expressed. And until data is expressed, we generally can't protect it. So if you think about this as a house, if you broke your house into individual data points, say broke it down to the bricks, there is no protection in legislation to protect those individual bricks. But when your house is expressed as a house, as a dwelling, then there is protection for it. And if you wanted to rent your house out, that's where then you would bring a contract into it, but you couldn't put a contract on the individual bricks themselves, just the expression of the house. Next one. So when we're talking about copywriting our research data, we have to be very, very clear on what our research data is, because you could have a whole bunch of different data types and each individual one will have different protections or none at all under legislation. So while you might try and apply a license to, say, your data readings, there's no protection under law for that license. So it really doesn't matter that you've put a license on it. Anyone, if they have access to it, can do what they want with it because there is no law protecting the use of that work. So when you can copyright, though, what is good to remember is that copyright is a property right. If you create a work, if you use your intellect, your innovation to express a work in a particular way, that expression can be copyrighted. So while you can't copyright the data that you use to write your research article, because your research article is an expression of that data, you can copyright that. And those copyrights then will allow you to apply licenses to it, and those licenses tell other people what they can do with your work. And the reason that's useful is because, for an example, we put theses on our institutional repository, SOART, and they're probably the most downloaded items in the repository, and we're talking thousands of downloads. You could not administrate those level of requests. So that's why we license things, so people can just download them automatically, safe in the knowledge that they're legally allowed, have access to this item and allowed to reuse it and things like that. That's what a license tells you. And it tells you about your permissions, essentially, of use. And these could, like, what is included in copyrighted material is vast, but just for research purposes, it could be lectures, articles, books, databases you create, software, imagery, it goes on, whatever your outputs are, there's probably a way that it can be protected in copyright if it is an expression rather than a single data. And Patrick has a few examples there, like I mentioned, of what can be used or protected. Could you go on to the next slide, Patrick? So databases is an interesting one. So under law, a database can be protected, but the protection is really odd. It's not the contents itself are not protected, it's the structure of the database which is protected. So the data are still data points that are just that cannot be protected, but the manner in which you have organized it and maybe cleaned it up and verified it, that is deemed as significant intellectual work, and therefore that organization of the individual data points is what is protected. So that is the law for that is sui generis, but it's generally abbreviated to SGDR. And so I'll give an example after this of how you might want to work with that. And it's important to acknowledge as well that a database can contain many different types of data. So you could have copyrighted data and non-copyrighted data in a database. And if that is the case, then that obviously limits what a database can do. But there are ways to kind of work around it if you know ahead of time. So as in the slide there, so while the addresses and the names and stuff in the yellow pages, if people still remember what the yellow pages are, cannot be protected by copyright. The way they have been presented in the yellow pages itself, in that document, can be protected. So we go on to the next slide, Patrick. So I want to give an example here of how that might work in a research project. And Tara, you might see some similarities here to some things we may have done. But it's a health science project. So what the project is trying to do, it's a randomized control trial. And what it's looking to do is explore the utility of strength training, supported with a digital tool, in reducing executive dysfunction. So this is people's ability to actually act on the things they need to do in individuals diagnosed with autism in adulthood, right? So these are just some of the information that could be included as data in a project like this. So there's personal information. So you're recruiting people. So obviously you'd have their names, addresses, that kind of thing, whatever would be deemed useful there. You have third-party data. So this is a randomized control trial. Before this, there would have been a pilot trial where you would have piloted the protocol and the methodology to see if it actually was worth taking to full RCT stage. So there's the outstanding data that you are probably going to use there. That's all in a data set. That's your third-party data. There's accelerometer readings. So these are the readings from the Fitbit or the phone or whatever the participants in the study are using to measure different data points. So their heart rate, things like that, all those data points. They're not, they're anonymized, but they're data readings essentially. Then there's the imagery of the movements. So trainers as part of this trial have demonstrated the movements for users. And so that's more data there. Then the participants that took part in it, we're going to interview them after they've gone through the process and just see what works, what didn't work, and that kind of thing. So there's anonymous answers there. And then after all of that, you're combining the third-party data and the new readings that you have together to create a new database. Sorry, the next slide. So this is what our data looks like, right? And all of this data is going to be used to create an app at the end of this that could potentially be used by people all over the world who want to utilize strength training to help with executive dysfunction. So for participant information, is this protected? Is it not? So if you hit the, just go, yeah, it is. It's protected under GDPR, and it will also be protected ideally under academic, ethical, and disciplinary guidelines. Okay, so it can't be protected by copyright, but it is protected by GDPR. Next one, Patrick. The data set isn't protected because it's just data readings, they're facts, so there is no copyright protection for the facts. Next one, same for your accelerometer readings, there's no personal data included, it's just facts. Imagery and movement, so this is another one, because there's people in this, they're protected by GDPR, and they're protected by, because the files themselves will be edited, because they're going to be added to the eventual app, they're protected by copyright. So if this wanted to be used, if you wanted basically to make this app open and not proprietary, you would have to apply, well, first of all, you'd have to get GDPR clearance from people that they are happy for their image to be on the app. And then you would have to license it with an open license so the imagery could actually be used in the app itself and be reused if somebody else wanted to apply it to something else. The interview questions, sorry, what's that now? Please note any question. Oh, sorry, I thought you were asking about the interview questions and the thing. Interview questions then, it's anonymized. They would be subject to ethics. So you would have to be ensuring that you got informed consent for the use and share of the answers to this, to inform the creation of the app, but also any textual outputs from this, so an article or a presentation or anything like that, they would be protected by ethical clearance, but not by copyright. And then finally, the database. So this is protected, as I said, by CGNRs or SGDR, which is basically you have created a new database by using the third-party dataset and your new accelerometer dataset. You've created a database, you've added intellectual property onto it, you've put a lot of effort, you've cleaned it up, you've presented it in a certain way. So that is protected, and probably you can put a copyright license on that. But you can still make it open if you decide to, but that's a decision you'd have to make. And then finally, the app. The app is offering a technology and a service, and these things can be patented, which is another protection of copyright. So if it was decided that you didn't want the item the app to be open, that you actually maybe wanted to monetize it or something like that, you would probably seek a patent for that to ensure that basically everything, what's in the presentation of all this data in the shape of an app is protected basically by patent legislation. Next one, Patrick. So what does this all mean for protecting and sharing your data? Well, access to data is still crucial. If, going back to the example, this project wouldn't have worked without previous data being used as part of it and adding on to that. So it's still hugely important to protect your data. It's also very much important for you to understand the difference between ownership of work. So you own your intellectual property in the sense that you are the owner of it, but you can be the owner of data and not be able to copyright it or license it, and understanding those distinctions is really important. So understanding what data you have and what the implications for that data are crucial, and why a research data management plan is so important at the outset of a project, or certainly before you go to data collection stage or ethics stage. It's really important to know what you intend to do with your data, so you can be able to answer these questions of, well, what are you going to do about ownership and IP? Once you're done, but when your data then is protected, it can be better disseminated and shared, and when possible, and I suppose utilising the phrase as open as possible, as close as necessary, applying a Creative Commons license is really important for the sharing and the preservation of your work. But it's important to know when a Creative Commons license will actually be enforceable and when it won't. And while there's many options in terms of the levels of CC options, Creative Commons options, for data, we highly recommend you stick to CC BY, which is the first Creative Commons license. The reason for this is as you get down the list of Creative Commons licenses, it gets more and more restrictive. And so you could have a situation where, let's say you've created a database and some of it is licensed for, say, Creative Commons, CC BY, and some is more restrictive. That means they aren't interoperable. And that then we're not able to fulfill the FAIR principles, and it really limits the sharing and reproduction of the research or validating the research going forward. Next one, Patrick. It's yourself.
Yes, thanks very much, Sinead. And that to reiterate there what you said a few slides ago, it's a really good example that you provided there of the different types of data. And exactly that, at the start of your data management plan, you were asked to outline what data are you going to collect and how are you going to collect it. And very much in that stage, once you start thinking about those things, then you can start thinking about what sort of licenses need to be applied, what sort of GDPR needs to be thought about in different situations. So all really good stuff there. The Creative Commons licenses, then you do have different options in there, but by far most, the CC BY is the one that we go for, which allows us to copy and publish, to give attribution to the first person for commercial use and modify and adopt, and then to change the license as well. But then you can see all the different options all the way down as well for different types of licenses. And really, you'll see, like if you take a look at the examples that are on Sword, some of the latest works that have been put out on Sword, you'll see CC and then it'll be BY, just that second license there, CC BY in the graphic. SA then adaptations must be shared under the same conditions as before. Generally, we don't do that as well because it makes it more complicated. NC, non-commercial, the reuse must not include commercial use. That depends on your project. Again, you'll have to do thinking about that on your own personal works themselves. ND then is no derivatives, so the adaptations of the work are no adaptations are permitted. So a lot of different options there, but by far the most popular one that is being used, or most common one that you will see, is the BY, CC BY. To choose a license and to add it to a document, generally on Sword, it's been added by us here in the library, or whoever is working on it. But when you do create a work, and let's say you add it to a certain repository somewhere else, or you need to have a look at what is entailed in it, the Creative Commons website has a chooser that you can actually go in and look at this and say, okay, yes, I know the license I need, or no, I need help selecting the license. You select the license that you need and you go for it, and then it gives you the different options in a drop down. So it's quite interesting to see that. The CC BY4 here is the one that we would use a lot here. It requires that reusers give credit to the creator. It allows reusers to distribute, remix, adopt, and build upon the material in any medium or format, even for commercial purposes. And then the BY credit must be given to you, who is the creator. So they must always refer back to you with the license there. There's also looking at about these licenses as well, if you need a refresher. And myself, sometimes I'll go back and have a look and see the different licenses and the differences between them. We'll share links at the end of this presentation to see what different options are available again. This one here is an example of then the attribution when you're actually filling it out. Let's say we're talking about a thesis. On the left-hand side in number 3 here, you can see the title of the work, creator of the work, link to it then if it's on Sword or if it's in some other place, the creator profile so they can link back to the person, and then the year of creation. So then you see that the CC BY 4 is added to it on the right, and then underneath it, then you can see how it'll look in rich text. You can copy it, you can copy the HTML and add it to whatever web page it's on. And various different options there for print work or media. So for more information then on this, as I was saying, the copyright licensing is there. The section is there. It's quite succinct at the moment. Obviously, it's a massive big area. There's a lot of different things to think about. We've provided some resources in the slides here, but generally, just for a top level refresher, you'll find that in the research data management section. Most likely, you want to get in touch if you're not fully sure. You want to get in touch with us and have a chat about it and find out what should you do for your own work itself. Very, very different types of research data out there. Everything from a thesis to using an image within a movie. So, you know, what are your options depending on your own research project? Just get in touch with us to find out a bit more about that. I'm just gonna just hand over to Sinead for a second there to just talk about the course and Foundations of Open Science, because I think this is an excellent resource for people across the university.
Thanks, Patrick. So we want to acknowledge that this is a very dense, confusing area, and most people are not comfortable enough in it to be making calls on copyright and to know what to do with your data and stuff like that. And that's why myself and Patrick are employed by the university, is to help you with those questions. But if you want to kind of start getting a little bit more comfortable with it yourself, the Foundations of Open Science course is basically to bring you in at the very ground level, to kind of bring you in, okay, first of all, what is research? And once we understand what research is, we start talking about, okay, how do we make research open? What does that mean? So it's a short enough course. You get a digital badge at the end of it. I'll just put in the links for both the Kerry and the Cork iterations of it. Just have a look at the URL there to have a look. And basically we go open science, that starts out with what is research and then moves into what is open research, essentially. For something to be open, it hinges on the fact that it has a license applied to it. If it doesn't have a Creative Commons or an equally open license applied to it, it isn't open, it's just freely available on the web. And the reason why that's important is because there are implications of something being open. It means it's going to be preserved. It means that you should be able to always locate it using a DOI or some other persistent identifier. So there's protections basically built into open licensing. So you don't have a situation which I think a lot of us are experiencing now in our personal lives, where maybe you have a subscription to a streaming platform and a program or a movie that was on it last week isn't on it this week, and you paid the money for that program and now it's gone. We don't own anything anymore, and we can't guarantee access to it. So this is and this goes for research as well. At any point, a publisher can decide that I don't need this work anymore. It's old, it's out of date. I'm just going to not show it on my website anymore. That's why we have open, so we can ensure preservation and ensure access long term. Then we move into open data. What is data? What is research data? And then what does open research data mean? And there, to take you on. And then open access, which is more for your finished outputs. So your publications, your conference presentations, posters, that type of thing, about how you make them open and what that means for them to be open. So it's really kind of ground floor level stuff that is designed to make you feel a little bit more comfortable making decisions and moving in this world as you go forward. So that's it. That's the Foundations of Open Science. And if you have any questions about it, obviously come back to me.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Sinead. And then extra resources then. A lot of data on OpenAIRE, how to protect my research data, plus the Concordant as well. Any of the references we're making here today on both Creative Commons and also research data management on MTU Library website, the Foundation of Open Science course, as Sinead was saying, the 2 different instances of it, that should be updated as well, and we'll upload that to Sword once the webinar is finished in that one. So thank you all very much. Great series of the 3. Thanks very much, Sean and Sinead as well. And again, a lot of this will be available for people to be able to access again very soon. So we're very glad of the support there. And also just to see our emails there if you want any more information, patrick.egan@mtu.ie, sinead.hanrahan@mtu.ie. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Patrick, for that. Just a question there, actually, I suppose. Well, firstly, maybe just to kind of say what to share you, like I've engaged with those resources that are up on Canvas around open science, and just to kind of say, look, they're excellent resources to and Sinead, fair play to you on them, because they're so easy to engage with and just to navigate your way around. Like I would describe them as being very much user friendly. So thanks very much, and it's great to have them there, and it's great to have a foundation, because without the foundation, everything crumbles. So the foundation is extremely important. So thanks very much for that, Sinead. Patrick, I really thought it was nice, kind of, I mean, there's so many nice slides throughout now, but just the different kind of levels to the CC. I thought that's so, because I definitely be like, well, which one am I thinking of doing again here, you know? And it was just sometimes, and it was actually on one of your screens, it's screen grabs that said it as well. There's, you know, it says CC by, and then it says international. What's the international bit mean?
Across jurisdictions, as far as I know on that one.
Okay.
That's something that Sinead would talk
So
about
it's
more.
basically, it is a CC by, really. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Very good. Super. Look, thanks very much. I mean, as a bite-sized webinar, research data webinars goes, that was actually perfect, absolutely perfect. The idea of open licensing is so important. And thanks very much for kind of sharing that and sharing your experiences with it, and signposting to all the resources, both up on Canvas and on the library webpage. Excellent to have them there and to have them available. And actually, another thing that I meant to say was interesting how you distinguish between, Sinead, how you distinguish between something that was, we'll say, open, or something that was just freely available. That was an important distinction to kind of say there. So thanks, that was good, actually. Thanks very much. So thanks, Patrick, for the 3 webinars. It's been brilliant to have them this semester. Thanks, Sinead, for joining in on this one, and all the best, everyone. Bye now.
Thanks very much.